Welcome in. It is the Week 11 pre-show. Carson Fox here for you on Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports with our beloved West Virginia Mountaineers on the road with a 4-4 overall record, 3-2 in Big 12 conference record at the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are 5-3, also 3-2 in Big 12 play. A noon Eastern time kickoff from historic Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio, televised on FS1. And if you care what happens in Vegas, the betting odds for this game, according to ESPN Bet, Cincinnati now favored by 4.5 as the home team. Over-under set at 56.5. And this is a matchup that the ESPN matchup predictor does not like in favor of the Mountaineers. Just a 36.6% chance to win, according to ESPN.com. And like always, I'm going to give you the matchup history. I'm going to talk about what does this really game mean, what's on the line for both teams, talk about the weather, injuries, what to watch for when Cincinnati has the ball, what to watch for when West Virginia has the ball, 3 keys to victory, and then I'm going to get you out with a prediction. So, a lot to unpack, and I'll try and do it for you as fast as humanly possible. But I got to lead off just a minute into this show, and I have to say, and with all sincerity, and if this is all that you tune in for this show, I'm going to give it to you straight. I think that this is one that West Virginia, being very serious here, has to have if it still considers itself a top 50 program in college football. I know that's a nuclear mic drop kind of like whoa moment, but I'm checking out, because I'm the athletic subscriber, and I'm checking out this week's national rankings, which they do every team in the FBS. And where do I see West Virginia ranked? But 62nd. 62nd is irrelevant, especially whenever you're in the bottom third, or like middle tier of what is the Power 4, which is quickly becoming the Power 2. And, the ACC and Big 12, at least from a revenue standpoint, is trying to keep itself up. And, if you've seen these red alerts by the chair of the Big 12, I think President's Conference or something, calling like a red alert today about, the structure and future of college football. Like, this is a game, and this even accounts for Baylor, UCF, and Texas Tech. But West Virginia, with its record, is in now a 6-year stretch that has to be the worst 6-year stretch going back to the Kennedy administration. So a whole generation or two. That West Virginia has to win this game. And this like transitions well into my matchup history. West Virginia against Cincinnati all time in 21 matchups is 17-3-1. The West Virginia Mountaineers were 5-2 against the Bearcats when the two teams were both members of the Big East Conference from 2005 to 2011. Yes, Cincinnati had a few really good years with Tony Pike at quarterback, Brian Kelly as the head coach, Marty Gilliard at wide receiver. We can remember those Cincinnati teams there in like 07, 08, 09, even I think 2010. Zach Caleros becomes the quarterback. And that's when, West Virginia lost a couple of games to Cincinnati during those, one in Morgantown and one on the road at Cincinnati. And then there was a real ugly stunner. I think it was in 2003 or 2004. But for the most part, Cincinnati is a G5 level program. And I know that, they're now loud and proud in the Big 12 Conference. They had a flash in the pan, once-in-a-100-year season with Luke Fickell as its head coach, with Desmond Ridder and I forget the cornerback's name, who plays for the New York Jets or something. Went top 5, and I don't know why the name escapes me so much right now at the top of my mind. But the brain fog of being a new dad, I guess. But West Virginia is a better program than Cincinnati. Always has, and in my opinion, always should be. It's just West Virginia is in a really, really sticky situation right now, and they need this win. They do, not only for 2024, but looking ahead toward the future and what this program is, while it's empty chip bag, visor wearing head coach Neil Brown is still on the sidelines. And it sounds as if no matter what happens for this 24 season happens, that he's going to be back, because West Virginia unfortunately just doesn't have the money to spend toward a buyout of himself and the staff, and to go out there and find a prominent head coach and go and hire a new one, with the House settlement case coming and player revenue sharing, the new formation of NIL finally coming down, that West Virginia is going to have to fund toward its student athletes. I hate to go that nuclear. I hate to put that period at the end of my sentence right there, but that's unfortunately where that we sit right now, and I cannot stomach a loss to these Cincinnati Bearcats. If you followed my channel, it devastated me to lose to the Pitt Panthers for the second time in 2 years, but unfortunately that was the case. Now you cannot lose to Cincinnati, given especially where Cincinnati was this time a year ago too, because West Virginia pounded them in Morgantown. It was 42-7 in the fourth quarter. Garrett Green ran wild all over the Bearcats, 154 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns to go along with his 210 passing yards and a touchdown. It was a 434-yard rushing game for the Old Gold and Blue, their best of the season. It was led by then true freshman Jaheim White at running back, who had 204 yards and a rushing touchdown. Also had that 75-yard catch and run. Beautiful there in the first quarter. So the Bearcats, offense completely floundered under then quarterback Emory Jones, and also switching back and forth with Brady Lichtenberg at quarterback. But West Virginia dominated that matchup, and they better come out with a victory, even though it's on the road. So what's on the line for both teams in this matchup? I've already kind of given it to you how dire I feel like it is for West Virginia to win this, just for the statement that it makes as for West Virginia's program that should not be losing to teams like Cincinnati if it is still a serious, relevant program in the in FBS, especially the Power Four. But believe it or not, this is crazy, but because both Iowa State and Kansas State lost last week, West Virginia's outside chances of making the Big 12 championship game increased from practically impossible to highly unlikely. Still less than 1% out there, but you never know with college football. You never truly know what kind of chaos can happen. There's a cluster, really, of teams with 2 conference losses that includes Cincinnati in the Big 12, also Arizona State, Texas Tech, who West Virginia has in the regular season finale on the road, and now Kansas State, who West Virginia did lose to, still in the national top 25, has a really, really good team, but that's college football. You go down to Houston, you don't come prepared, your head is not in it, you might be overlooking your opponent or not taking them seriously, and you get beat. That's what happens. Always has and always will, unless you have extremely overpowering talent like the Alabamas of the 2010s and the 2020s. BYU still owns the top spot in the conference at 5-0, but they're on the road at Utah in the Holy War. And then there's Iowa State and Colorado at 4-1, who have a couple of interesting matchups this week. Kansas on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. Iowa State coming off that 23-22 loss to Texas Tech. Kansas, really nothing to play for. They lost to their in-state rival in Kansas. They still have Jalen Daniels at quarterback. So are they just going to go nuclear, go crazy, nothing to play for, nothing really to lose, and go and take it to Iowa State? I don't know. Colorado at Texas Tech, I think that's going to be one of the best matchups in college football this weekend. High-flying offenses. I think that's going to be a hostile environment. I don't really always like that phrase, but Texas Tech, reading comments from opposing fans on social media and here on Twitter, are not friendly down there in Lubbock. So to welcoming in bold and brash Deion Sanders and his Colorado team back to the Big 12, oh boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that one from Jones AT&T Stadium down there in Lubbock. BYU, I mentioned, at Utah in the Holy War, and then UCF on the road at Arizona State. It seems like UCF has kind of gotten a little bit of fire, picking the pieces up to the season of wanting to try and compete in this Big 12, even though they're not going to contend for a Big 12 championship. So weather alert, I think it's going to be decent. High is 65, and you'll take that for November 9th. Like, come on, gotta love that. But overcast, 30% chance of rain, increasing to 80% by nighttime. So I don't think rain is going to play any sort of an impact in this game or have an impact on the field. Injuries, though. I think there's 5 worth note to talk about for this game. One that we've been talking about for a few weeks now. I think this has been the number one ongoing. Jaden Bray out. Also Aiden Garnes out. Aubrey Burks, this situation is starting to get really funky, y'all. I don't want to go so crazy as to say anything, conspiratorial, because I know as much as you know out there, and what's not reading between the tea leaves, hearing Neil Brown's press conferences, comments on Mondays, and his Kegler show on Thursday night, and seeing what people say on social media. But I just find it weird that he played in 4 games. Then he played in 2 games but didn't collect stats in those games. And now he hasn't played since. He has a redshirt year available. And the longer that he sits out and does not play, he's not building his NFL draft profile. He is a senior. Are we in a Charles Woods situation 2.0? Is he trying to redshirt to potentially come back for next season? I don't know if there could be some sort of, medical hardship waiver or something that could be used there for. I don't know the situation here, but it's the longer he's out, the stranger this situation becomes. And because of the whole situation with Charles Woods from a few years ago, any conspiracy theory out there, I'll hear it all. So I'll listen to it. The biggest upgrade getting back from injuries this week is going to be Wyatt Milam at left tackle. Nothing against Johnny Williams, but Wyatt Milam being one of the best left tackles in college football, absolutely want him back into the lineup. And then one that's we've been talking about for a few weeks now, ever since the second half of the K-State game, Garrett Green doubtful at quarterback. So sounds, listening to some other, shows out there, listening to a Spaces, or just earlier this evening, doesn't sound like Garrett Green is going to be playing in this game due to concussions. Concussions, plural, for this season. So don't know about, that to the fullest extent. Again, concussions can affect everyone differently. So just got to go with what I know, which is very little, and what do we, see down the stretch, especially once the Mountaineers come back home next week against Baylor, and then obviously Senior Day for a senior Garrett Green. That will be very interesting. So let's talk about the matchup itself. West Virginia versus Cincinnati. What to watch for when Cincinnati has the ball. Cincinnati is scoring 5 points per game more on average compared to a year ago, and is the 3rd most efficient offense in the Big 12, namely because of number 2 redshirt sophomore quarterback Brendan Sorsby. Cincinnati's biggest transfer portal addition this past offseason from Indiana, and assumed the starting quarterback role, overtaking Brady Lichtenberg, who did play in this matchup a year ago in Morgantown. And Sorsby's had a pretty good year in his first year starting for the Bearcats. 3rd in the Big 12 in passing yards per game with 264, with a 66% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, 60 rushes for 144 yards on the ground with 6 touchdowns. So 21 touchdowns to just 4 picks. That's pretty dang good numbers. That's what we were talking about with Garrett Green about this time a year ago. He will run when he escapes the pocket and he has green grass in front of him. I don't want to use the white quarterback cliche and say he's deceptively fast, but you get what I'm saying. I think he's just about a step faster than what I would say about Nico Marchiol, watching some film back this week on Sorsby. At 6'3", 230 pounds, great size, fits Scott Satterfield's system well, and everything that runs through him. A former state of Texas high school quarterback. especially when he's making good decisions, distributing the ball, and deciding when to run. Sorsby really fits well in this offense, and he's got an offensive line chock full of upperclassmen who have kept him well protected. Cincinnati's top 40 in the country in sacks allowed this season with just 11, and they're getting back, according to head coach Scott Satterfield earlier this week in his Monday press conference, that all Big 12 right guard Luke Kandra should be back this Saturday on the offensive line. So Cincinnati's going to want to clean up the penalties, though. Watching that game back against Colorado on the road 2 weeks ago, after Cincinnati had a bye, they had 9 for 69 yards. Also, they were just 3 of 10 on third down, 1 of 3 on fourth down. So, not the best game there for the Cincinnati offense, a couple of weeks ago, but do credit Colorado for how much better their defense has improved from last season to this season. Just play so fast there at Folsom Field, it seems like. Also got to talk about senior running back Corey Kiner, 7th in the Big 12 in rushing yards per game, 86.5 yards per contest, 692 rushing yards for the season with just 2 touchdowns on 123 carries, also 71 receiving yards on 11 catches. He's steady, he's Mr. Reliable. In 6 out of Cincinnati's 8 games, he's touched the ball 18 times or more with 100 or more total yards in 7 out of 8 of those games. So he's really the one exclusion from that, so the 1 out of 8, was he still had 92 yards against UCF. So he's a focal point in this offense, although he wasn't really much of a factor in last year's contest against West Virginia. Just 13 carries for 56 yards once Cincinnati got down by multiple scores, especially early on. I think it was 21-0 there at the end of the first quarter. It was like, okay, Cincinnati can't do what it does best and run the ball. So Corey Kiner completely neutralized. That's why it's always so important. It's always important to go full systems go at the start. You don't want to play patty cake, like you're throwing jabs in the first round, trying to feel out your opponent, whittle them down for the fourth quarter. That is the Neil Brown failed philosophy, unfortunately, that it just doesn't seem like he's able to snap out of that. Them wanting to play fast, wanting to play more up-tempo. Instead, we're using the entire play clock. We're putting so many multiple guys in motion, so we're using 7.5 minutes or so per first drive. So already 1/8 of the game is already expended, and you've run what, maybe 10 or 12 plays or something. So it's just not a good philosophy. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent again. Back to Corey Kiner. I do think West Virginia has the opportunity to do a good job against Kiner. And also want to talk about his compadre, redshirt junior number 6, Evan Pryor, a transfer from Ohio State 2 weeks ago at Colorado. 5 carries for just 25 yards rushing, but did have a touchdown, also a catch for 40 yards in that one. So he has 5 plays on the season for 36 yards or more, 2 for over 60 yards. So he's kind of like the home run threat, kind of like what Jaheim White is for West Virginia's offense, where Corey Kiner kind of fills in that C.J. Donaldson-esque role. But he's not as powerful as Donaldson, but is still a very good back, I feel like, in this offense. So, but West Virginia, top 40 now in FBS in rush yards allowed at 121.5 yards per game, have a healthy defensive line core and linebacker core at game number 9 of the season, coming off a bye. So these guys in the front 7, I hope they can attack after Kiner and Pryor whenever they touch the ball out of the backfield. Talking about the receiving core now of Cincinnati, obviously the number 1 guy. We talked about him a year ago when we previewed this matchup, senior wide receiver Xavier Henderson, 10th in the Big 12 in receiving yards per game at 69, 43 catches for 552 yards and 4 touchdowns. He did have a 100-yard game versus West Virginia a year ago, but he did most of the damage when the game was out of reach, really in what you would consider garbage time. But is a bit of a matchup problem, 6'3", 200 pounds. He's going to be going up against number 1, Garnet Hollis Jr., pretty much. What they like to do is put Hollis Jr. on an island. He'll be matched up primarily against Henderson. But unfortunately, West Virginia has been burned by one wide receiver over the last 3 weeks, and 2 out of those 3 times it was the team's primary receiver. Talking about in Iowa State, Jalen Knoll, Kansas State, Jaden Jackson, and then last week, Teteroa McMillan. So what changes do we see in the secondary by defensive backs coach Shadon Brown and interim defensive coordinator Jeff Coons to slow down the aerial assault? That's going to be the number one question, because just besides Henderson, Cincinnati went into the transfer portal. They realized that they had a ton of holes, especially offensively, that was not Big 12 caliber a year ago. And I think the best addition that they made, redshirt junior tight end Joe Royer, a transfer from Ohio State, 6'5", 255. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. 36 catches, forget this, 437 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 12 yards per reception. That's good for 21st in the Big 12. And the only tight end in the Big 12 with a better yards per reception average is Brant Kuithe from Utah, who was named the All Big 12 preseason team tight end going into this year. So watch for Royer, number 11 in the middle, and hopefully that Josiah Trotter or somebody in this safeties core. I don't know if Anthony Wilson's big enough to tackle him, especially for 4 quarters. Kakora Tarnu, went down with an injury there in that Arizona matchup. Who in the middle of the field is fast enough to run with Royer, but also big enough to bring him down? That's going to be an interesting one to watch for in kind of the games within the games. Defense versus Cincinnati's offense. So 2 other pass catchers you got to watch for. Number 0, redshirt junior Tony Johnson, transfer from FAU. Also number 10, senior Jamoy Mays, a transfer from Chattanooga, who both combined for 48 catches for 438 yards and 5 touchdowns collectively. So what I would say from a schematic and philosophical aspect, Cincinnati's offense is going to look a lot like West Virginia's, at least with Nico Marchiol leading the charge at quarterback, compared to Garrett Green, with just a lot more passing, what you see out of Sorsby this year. So will West Virginia's defense rise to the occasion on the road like it has against Oklahoma State and Arizona? Huge question. Will West Virginia not let itself get intimidated on the road at a blacked out Nipper Stadium in a noon contest? Will it show rust from a week off because of the bye week, or was that just a reprieve it needed to get some of the key hurt or injured players in a position to play with physicality? I think Cincinnati is going to test West Virginia's secondary if they've scouted it out, especially without Aubrey Burks for these past couple of games. Like their West Virginia's defensive backs are just going to have to show that they're competent, I feel like, in coverage against this wide receiver core. Because for the most part, what I will give West Virginia's defensive backs is that they do tackle well. I'll talk about how I don't see that in Cincinnati's defensive backs. Is West Virginia is not necessarily, at least from its safeties and corners, I feel like missing a lot of tackles, especially wide receiver on D-back. Maybe on running back or tight end, but definitely wide receiver. But they just are not covering well. They're not covering at all, or they're taking too many steps back when they should be, pressing or jamming men at the line of scrimmage, and just I don't know. I hope that West Virginia plays better defensively, especially in the secondary. I don't want to see a reincarnation of Avery Johnson and Brandon Sorsby, at home at Nippert Stadium, just nickeling and diming West Virginia all down the field, and our West Virginia defensive backs are 5 yards off the ball, 10 yards off the ball, just letting them get catches in space. You have to be physical. You have to go and break passes up if you can't pick it off. And then just get Cincinnati off the field on third downs. Colorado did that really well 2 weeks ago. Like I said on the onset, 3 of 10 was Cincinnati in that contest, and that's what they were able to do. When there were one-on-one contests between defensive back and wide receiver, Colorado came up with the plays when it needed to win the ball game. And just continue, I feel like a healthy dose of pressure is not going to be a bad thing. It is when Trey Lathan is the one covering Tetaroa McMillan, but you get what I'm saying for this contest. Sean Martin, Fatorma Mulba, TJ Jackson have been a really dynamic trio, it seems like, for this season, kind of playing off each other's strengths and really doing well. So do the same thing against Sorsby. If they can get a rush with 3, whew, if they can get a rush with those 3, and especially if there's a linebacker, possibly in a spy, or someone who's responsible for Sorsby, if he steps up in the pocket, tries to escape like Drew Aller did in week 1 for Penn State, like West Virginia's going to have a good day. I think that's kind of the model. That's the scheme. Or if they send 4, like that's fine. Just get after him and bring him down to the ground. But if he escapes the pocket, if someone can be there to get Sorsby down and not kill you with his legs, that's going to be important. And also, will West Virginia get a turnover? Rinse, repeat, recycle. That's what I say. I feel like I say every single week is West Virginia's chances of winning a ball game precipitously increase whenever it's able to collect turnovers. And unfortunately, it has not done a good enough job, especially in its 4 contests that it's lost already this season, in forcing those turnovers. Is now, with Jeff Coons leading the defense, can things be a little bit different? Just little tweaks here and there that present a different look that Cincinnati hasn't seen on film that might just throw off one play. One play can be the difference. We just saw how that Quali Conley fumble in the Arizona contest there, what was it, after the first series, I think it was? Yeah, first series. Scoop, you get points off it, you're playing with a lead, multi-score lead for 40-plus minutes in this contest, and that's how you're able to close the deal at the end of the day. Let's talk about what to watch for when West Virginia has the ball. Talking first about the Cincinnati defense. 3-3-5 scheme, new defensive coordinator Tyson Veit, who was previously at Iowa State. They're the 4th best team in the Big 12, according to points per game allowed, at 21 per game. They forced a league-high 11 fumbles and a league-high 6 fumble recoveries, while having 3 more sacks on the season than West Virginia has at this point in time. And we've already talked about how good West Virginia's been at rushing the passer, it seems like, this season. 2 guys that we got to talk about with this Cincinnati defense because there's a West Virginia connection. Look at Mr. 6th-year outside linebacker, number 7, Jared Bartlett. And he's a guy I talked about, quite frequently on this channel a year ago. Let's look at his stats so far this season. 3rd in the Big 12 with 5.5 sacks, tied for 5th in the league with 8 tackles for loss, 42 tackles, 3 passes defensed. This is what happens when you have the Jordan Leslie-led bandit spur position, is you get stuck in purgatory. You just squat in a spy for 4 quarters. It's not like you're in this kind of attacking type of position that, you would think with a bandit or spur type of name, that's what you were going to get out of it. So I always said, and still defend what I said from a year ago, and the proof is now in the pudding with Jared Bartlett, that Jared Bartlett was not a bad outside linebacker. He was just stuck in a Jordan Leslie-led bandit position that was going nowhere, that was forced to be reactive instead of proactive and just wait to see if the play came his way. And still in those situations in which the play came his way, his assignment was really to just wait and stand there as kind of like the outside, like the backside outside contain or sitting in a spy. Look now, when you let him go use his ability, and yeah, he's a 6-year player, so yes, he should be playing at his maximum potential because of his age. But it's unfortunate because I understood why West Virginia decided to move on from him. Why did you get Tyron Bradley for this defense, over a year ago, thinking he would be the replacement heir apparent to Jared Bartlett, let him walk with 1 year's eligibility. But now with 1 year of Tyron Bradley versus 1 extra year of Jared Bartlett, I'd have liked to keep Jared Bartlett. But maybe West Virginia just saw him as an expendable piece to not use, valuable NIL resources. And Cincinnati said, hey, we're going to give you a starting spot here. We're going to give you, $50,000, or I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't know what he's getting paid, but you know what I mean? He's just flourishing. So I'm happy for Jared Bartlett. He was a guy who stuck through, in Neil Brown's, first recruiting class that I think was the last year of Dana Holgerson, that Neil Brown kept. kind of was like a program builder. It just unfortunately did not work out, I feel like, for Jared Bartlett to have the kind of season that he's having, that's what he wanted. Maybe he goes and now he makes some money in the NFL, or gets an opportunity as like a non-draftable free agent, because he's getting this opportunity in Cincinnati. So kudos to him, but just you can't do well against the Mountaineers this Saturday. And also, redshirt senior number 0, Josh Minkins. West Virginia received his verbal commitment while in the transfer portal from Louisville, but he reneged on his commitment verbally because of a quote-unquote business decision. So Minkins should be in Morgantown, should be one of the starting safeties, I feel like, not Kokora Tarnu. Love to have him. He's the interceptions leader for Cincinnati, just 2 on the season, but when you have 2 of 3 for the entire Cincinnati team, tied for the league low with West Virginia for interceptions, it might be nice to have Josh Minkins. But a mercenary player, a guy who's kind of just out there for one season trying to cash in, and West Virginia said, here's our best offer. If you don't take it, all right, and that's how he found his way to Cincinnati. So where I'm seeing through the numbers on this Cincinnati's defense, I'm not buying them. Played Towson and Miami of Ohio in the non-conference and didn't blow out either opponent in that game. They had the epic meltdown against Pitt. In week 2, they blanked Houston when it was going through a bunch of crap with quarterback Donovan Smith at quarterback, who turned the ball over 2 times in that contest and then lost the job to Zion Chris. Cincinnati gave up 44 points at Texas Tech to Baron Morton. UCF had just turned to Ja'Cory Brown at quarterback in its 19-13 loss. Sam Leavitt of Arizona State was out with an injury during its 24-14 loss at Cincinnati. And then last week, Shedeur Sanders, who might be the best quarterback in college football this season, ate Cincinnati up, 25 of 30 passing for 323 yards and 2 touchdowns with a rushing touchdown. So I'm not a believer in this Cincinnati defense whatsoever. I think this is a prime opportunity for redshirt sophomore number 8, Nico Marchiol, at quarterback, talking about his stats from 2 weeks ago at Arizona in his first start of the 2024 season, second career. 18 of 22 for 198 yards passing with 2 touchdowns, also had 11 carries for 39 yards rushing. He hit 9 different receivers in that contest. No one had more than 3 catches, but just taken away from that game and kind of seeing how the season's gone, I feel like we're finally starting to see some roles emerge for these wide receivers this season. And what I'll say is the big play threat seems to be Traylon Ray. That was the guy who came away with what seemed like the nail in the coffin score for the Mountaineers 2 weeks ago at Arizona. Traylon Ray's the big play threat. Watch for him in this contest to go deep, take some shots. All reliable number 3, Hudson Clement. Really like what the kind of like number 1 possession kind of guy. Like I just keep coming back to. I know David Sills was a little bit bigger than Hudson Clement, but man, does he just have those types of ball skills that reminds me of a David Sills that I really, really admire. Really like the season that Hudson Clement is having in Morgantown and really expected it. So hope that combination between Marchiol and Clement can keep it up. The possession guys, especially on the RPO, seems like Cole Taylor, also Justin Robinson finally getting back involved onto the season. In that contest against Arizona. And then kind of on the jet sweep, short passes and screens, they're going to Rodney Gallagher. So like that. And then, of course, as I talked about a week ago, involvement by the backs in the passing game, kind of as an extension of the run. We saw that out of Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson. So for what I say for West Virginia, just do what you do against Arizona, and this will be a competitive game. Competitive in that you're not going to get blown out. You're going to score points. Like, I think you can do everything that you did against Arizona against Cincinnati. The difference being, if Neil Brown wants to win, wants to take, you have to take some shots. Have to take some shots, throw to these wide receivers in space, and let them run, please. These defensive backs for Cincinnati cannot tackle. Cannot tackle. I know that Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter are a dynamic wide receiver duo. They're fast. I think they're strong for their body composition and size. But these guys are just grasping at air. They cannot tackle. Even when guys that are like right there that they should make the tackle, they can't bring them down to the ground. I don't know why, but that's Cincinnati's defensive backs. So do that. Try and get Rodney Gallagher on drags across the field, or same with the Hudson Clement. Let these guys catch and run, please, and then use the RPO. Attack vertically down the field. You have to go faster. You cannot use the kind of clock pre-snap that Neil Brown likes to do, unfortunately. You have to play faster. Have to. And also, you need an explosive play out of running back Jaheim White. We saw that last week when he had that, cut to the outside right down the sideline for 55 yards. Other than that, though, Arizona kept him pretty well contained, just 37 yards on 12 carries. But again, had that quick hitter for 55, so it made it a 92-yard day. And then also outside of the 20-yard touchdown rush, Arizona held C.J. Donaldson to just 21 yards on 7 carries. So I'm hoping that Wyatt Milam's return will help that left side of the offensive line. I know that people like to mention, especially last year, the matchup between Dante Corleone and Zach Frazier. Frazier ate him up, destroyed him for 4 quarters. And then I go back and I watched that game last week against Arizona 2 weeks ago for Cincinnati, and Corleone's fat. He's slow. He's out of shape. Looks like he has the endurance of Augustus Gloop. He's just up there. When he gets off the snap, he's just so slow. So slow. So if Brandon Yates, Tomas Remak, Jaquay Hubbard do not play intimidated against this guy, don't. Move him. And I hope that West Virginia goes and runs left right behind Wyatt Milam. Let him road grade, and these guys can come up with some big plays. But I'll talk about the passing game and what I see important in my 3 keys to victory. Let's talk about the special teams matchup between Cincinnati and West Virginia. And what do you know? We got another Australian punter competition. I love it. Senior Mason Fletcher for Cincinnati, 6'7", 215 pounds. Wow. Wild one. 24 punts, 45-yard average, long of 62. He has 7 of 50 plus and has 8 punts inside the 20, so he's a damn good one for the Bearcats. On the other side for West Virginia, Ollie Straw, 19 punts, 44-yard average, long of 57, has 2 of 50 plus and 9 inside the 20, so hope Ollie gets an opportunity to really boot one deep in this contest. For the punt returners back and forth between Cincinnati and West Virginia, not really much to talk about, I feel like. What we have seen the evolution of in the last couple of weeks is Preston Fox getting involved on the kick return yards. Now has 3 returns for a 26-yard average, whereas Traylon Ray just had 7 returns for a 20-yard average previous in the season. Preston Fox, unfortunately, in the punt return yards per return average, still has yet to really get going. Just 8 returns for an under 5 yards per return average. But again, Fox is really just being used out there to be steady and reliable and catching fair catches. On the opposite side for Cincinnati, there's 3 guys: Michael Musari, Tyron Smith, Jamoy Mays. They just combined for 5 yards per return on average on 6 total returns. And the kickoff returns, the guy who does the damage for the Bearcats, as Logan Wilson, 10 returns, 21-yard average, has a long of 29 on the season. The kicking matchup, I think I would give the edge to West Virginia, namely because junior Carter Brown, an Arizona State transfer, hasn't kicked since week 2, but at that point in time in the season against Pitt, he had already missed 2 field goals, 3 for 5, 8 for 8 on points after the touchdown. And then now they've turned to redshirt senior Nathan Hawks, who's 10 of 14 on the season, long of 55, has missed an extra point, 18 of 19 on the season. Old Mr. Reliable, Michael Hayes, nailed his season-long 45-yarder 2 weeks ago against Arizona. Beautiful kick. Loved that. 9 of 10 on the season, and also perfect with his points after at 24 of 24. So like that matchup, but look for Hawks for Cincinnati, Hayes on the other side for the Mountaineers. So my 3 keys to victory. I'm kind of going to give you what I feel like the model for West Virginia football in 2024, unfortunately, and I think we kind of all understand it now 8 games in, is West Virginia has to play with a lead, preferably a multi-score lead, heading into the fourth quarter, and if they create a turnover and get points off those turnovers, that's their mode to win. That's how they do it right there. They have to score points on their first possession, got to get a turnover early, get up, and then hold on to it for dear life. Hold your breath, clutch your pearls, say your Hail Marys, close your eyes, whatever you need to do to get through the fourth quarter. It always just seems like it's a wild one, unless we're talking about that Oklahoma State game. So I think that's going to be the case once again in a close matchup on the road against Cincinnati. But I'll give you 2 other keys to victory, since one was kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but like we've talked about it, I feel like enough on this channel. But for the offense, the passing game. I'm telling you, the passing game, nothing super difficult. I know that Arizona was dealing with some injuries, namely Jacob Manu being out a couple of weeks ago. But Nico Marchiol did make a few high of difficulty throws in that contest. And I think he's going to have to do so again, but make it also easier on him by hitting wide receivers with the ability to run after the catch. I think that's how you can make it easy. Watch that Colorado game. And that's what they did to kill Cincinnati. So I just think that Nico's got to be accurate. He's been accurate so far. I think definitely more accurate than Garrett Green has as a passer this season. So continue to do so. I believe in Nico Marchiol as the quarterback of now and of the future. Go out there and prove it against a defense that I'm telling you is subpar, and you should play well against. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I know we're all watching to see what is the difference between a Jeff Koons-led West Virginia defense and a Jordan Leslie-led defense. What are those small tweaks here and there that make a difference? And I'll go back to what I said about creating the rush. Getting to Sorsby, if you rush him, having a linebacker there ready to tackle him, if he steps up in the pocket and wants to run, chase him down, get him to the ground. And then the secondary, please show me something. Just please. I mean, I know you're missing arguably your best defensive player in Aubrey Burks, and that situation is just very strange with why he's not playing. Came back from that kind of scary injury that it looked like in the Kansas game, but you'd like to have number 2 manning the backfield in center field right alongside Anthony Wilson, but unfortunately that's not the case. No Aiden Garnes. So do we get another week of Dantes Fagan or TJ Crandall? Where are you, Jacoby Spells? Where are you, Jacoby Spells? We need you. You're our only hope. So that's I feel like the game plan. I'll get you out after this prediction here. I said preseason kind of. I was feeling very high on the projection of where West Virginia was going as a program and as a team. So in the preseason, I said this would just likely once again be another blowout, 42-21 on the road. After a bye, after I feel like picking up a little momentum after beating Arizona, I don't feel that way of momentum after that Arizona win. It was just a sigh of relief, get out of the desert there with a victory. So now I am going to stick by my prediction, and I know I'm not the best on these, 5-3 on the season, so could be better. But I think West Virginia can win, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be 31-28. I think we're going to see a lot of the, like I said, similarities on offense. Getting to 28 is going to be very important as this offense, and can Michael Hayes have a game-winning walk-off field goal? Does this have kind of like a 2014 Texas Tech type of vibe to it? And Michael Hayes is Josh Lambert? I kind of think so. I don't think that Michael Hayes has the leg from a strength perspective that Josh Lambert has, but Michael Hayes is damn accurate. So if he gets an opportunity, inside 45, I think he can nail it from just about anywhere. So that's kind of what I can see happening there at Nippert Stadium as it goes down to the wire. Sorsby has a pretty good day. I mean, still, they were able to score 23, 24 points on Colorado in a loss. So what are they going to go against West Virginia's defense that I do not still think that is as good as Colorado, unfortunately? I think they've shown some promise there in the front seven and rushing the passer and tackling running backs in the rush defense game. But the secondary, just I throw my hands up at it. I can't take it. But hopefully there's a difference in scheme, philosophy, attitude on the road with Jeff Coons leading the calls. And West Virginia is going out there and can give a valiant effort. So love to know your thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent. Leave them here on YouTube. How you feeling about this game? How do you think about some of the things that I said? I hope I didn't sound too pessimistic, but just like I'm frustrated. But I want to see West Virginia win. I really want to see West Virginia win. I never want to see West Virginia lose. Want to see them finish out this season strong, get to 8-4, go to a bowl game and win it. I never want to see West Virginia lose. I'm just... You get, if you've watched my programming, know where I stand on the head coach and coaching staff, and then kind of like administration's role as part of that. As a frustrated, broke fan who spent too much money, I feel like, on Pitt tickets and Kansas State tickets. So, good. Love to have your comments here on YouTube. Please like this video so other Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube, and love to have you as subscribers to my channel as we're closing in on the final third of the regular season for 2024, and also looking ahead to basketball. So kick that off with an awesome win earlier this week against Robert Morris. Have an interesting one on Friday night against UMass, and a game I really hope that West Virginia can pull off victory, get to 2-0, and then staring down that backyard brawl matchup next Friday, the 15th. But still sticking with football. Hopefully we're singing Country Roads at the end of the day, and on Saturday afternoon from Nippert Stadium. West Virginia comes out with a victory, and I just think this is vitally important for West Virginia to prove itself that it is big brother to Cincinnati's little brother. Don't call it a rivalry. Don't call it a rivalry. Wouldn't say it's that by any means. But with them getting back into the same conference as West Virginia, there is that kind of old Big East history. So want to beat these Bearcats. What is a Bearcat anyway? I have no idea. So I'll be back on Saturday or back on Sunday to recap it, whether it's a win, loss, or tie. You can't tie in college football. Just kidding. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. I do this each and every week, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And I'll see you on Sunday. Let's go. Hail West Virginia.